Welcome to the meeting of the Plans Committee on Thursday, the 19th of March 2026 for Charnwood Borough Council. Can I ask everyone present to please turn off your mobile phones or switch them to silent? May I remind all those present that this meeting is being live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel and that by attending the meeting you are giving your consent to being filmed. A notice with further information has been provided in the public gallery. Under the openness of local government bodies regulations, people may also film or record this meeting, and this is outside the Council's control. May I remind members of the public to be considerate of the committee and officers throughout the meeting and to remain quiet unless you are a registered speaker as part of the allocated public speaking slots. While the Plans Committee is a meeting in public, it is not a public meeting. The only contributions from members of the public are through those registered to speak as part of the formal speaking arrangements. Any contributions or disruption from the public gallery outside the formal speaking arrangements, whether, for example, by speaking or applauding in reaction to any contributions from officers, members of the committee or public speakers, is unacceptable and may lead to the adjournment of the meeting and members of the public being asked to leave. For the benefit of those watching the live stream and members of the public here tonight, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Councillor Lenny and I am Chair of the Plans Committee, and the other members joining us on the Plans Committee this evening are Councillor Corey Loseley, who is the Vice Chair, Councillor Fox, Councillor Fryer, Councillor Good, Councillor Granger, Councillor Hatji-Nicolau, Councillor Infield, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Seaton and Councillor Smidovic. The planning officer present this evening is Mr. Akram, who's down there for the moment, and our lead officer for this evening is Mr. Upton. Our democratic services officer is Miss Dobson, who's over there controlling us. And I would also like to welcome Mr. Gill, who is our legal advisor for the evening. Pardon? Oh, yeah, and then we've got Mark Pickrell for one of the items on the agenda, who is also one of our officers. For those watching the live stream, the planning officer presentation has been published. If you wish to view it, and it can be found on the agenda page on the 19th of March 2026. Could I ask that members of the committee use their microphones every time they speak to ensure that viewers of the live stream and recording can hear the discussion? We have received an apology from Councillor Charles, who is unfortunately unable to attend the meeting to speak on item 5B, which is P/25/1045/2, land at the Ridings and West Cross Lane, Roadley. He has requested that I read a statement on his behalf. Is the committee happy for me to read that statement when the time comes? Thank you. Could I have a show of hands just to make sure everybody knows what's going on? Thank you. Did you put your hand up?
I did.
So, yeah, I've confirmed that all of the members are happy for me to read that statement. Speakers will be called forward at the appropriate time and will have 3 minutes to speak. When 1 minute of time is remaining, they will be advised by the Democratic Services Officer, Ms. Dobson. Right, onto the agenda. Item 1, apologies. Ms. Dobson, have we received any apologies?
I confirm we've not received any apologies for this evening.
Thank you. And item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. Is the committee happy to confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of March 2026? Can you show your hands? Ooh. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. So that's just 2 abstentions, isn't it? The minutes of the previous meeting has been confirmed as a correct record, and I'll send them at the end, sign them at the end of this meeting. The next item is item 3, questions under committee procedure 12.8. Ms Dobson, have we received any questions?
I confirm that a question on notice under committee procedure 12.8 has been received from Mr Max Hunt regarding the estate plan for the Garendon Park Sustainable Urban Extension and associated matters. The question and response was published in the extras report dated the 18th of March 2026.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr Hunt. Would you like to read out your question or take the question and response as published in the report that you've received as read? Or do you know how to use the equipment?
Thank you, Chair. Well, the questions are rather...
Is the microphone on? Is the microphone on?
Right, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Infield.
The questions, Chair, are rather long and, although succinct, and there are 8 of them. So, since members have got copies laid out in front of them, would you be happy for me to not read them out and take them as read?
It's up to you.
I prefer that because I know you've got other business, important though my questions are.
That's considerate, thank you. I'm also obliged to invite you to ask one supplementary question and or make a statement which must be relevant and arise directly out of the original question or reply.
Yes, Chair, I think there's the nature of the questions will come through in the supplementaries. So in the first question, I'm asking if the authority has abandoned the intention to create new rights of way, and if so, how will the public access be enforced in so-called permissive paths?
Is that all of the...
That's all of my supplementary question.
Right, okay. Mr Pickrell.
Thank you. So in response to that, the option to support formal adoption of the routes by Leicestershire County Council has not been abandoned, but at this stage the routes have not been constructed to the specifications of the detailed landscape and plan, and while the routes remain as permissive routes, the liability remains on the developers to provide them to the agreed standard and for them to cover the cost of their management and maintenance. Their provision is enforceable based on the plans agreed for the Section 106, the landscape and plans and the phasing plans. The option for formal adoption by Leicestershire County Council will be kept under review to ensure they are secured for the long term. Thank you, Chair.
In the second question, it refers to a footpath which has not been completed. I keep asking about this. Can you see a situation where this is never completed?
Thank you, Chair. And in response to supplementary question 2, discussions are still open on the delivery of the link to Booth Wood, and it's still expected to be provided in accordance with the agreed details. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I can go to number 3. If the delivery of a visitor centre is still supported, as you say, and a decision is around 10 years away, as you say, will the access envisaged in the transport assessment be included in the development of parcels W8B and 1H? And is it not likely that such access will be necessary in any case, the use of the buildings?
Thank you, Chair. So details for residential parcels north of the Cow House area will be subject of detailed proposals and provided as part of Phase 8 out of the 9 phases for the whole site. At this stage, there are no detailed proposals for the uses of the Cow House buildings and any visitor centre. The parameter plans approved as part of the outline permission indicate potential for an access to the Cow House buildings from the north, but it's unlikely that this would be provided until a connection can be made from the strategic link road as well. Thank you, Chair.
Question 4, when will the review be completed?
Mr Pickrell.
Thank you, Chair. So the first review of the estate plan is due to be completed by March 2029. Thank you.
Well, question 5, when will the parish council be consulted? That's on the community development worker.
Thank you, Chair. So the formal appointment of the community development worker will be up to the employer of that role, and the parish council is not expected to be consulted. Thank you, Chair.
Question 6, with respect to the orange routes, these are radial routes of walking. Doesn't the plan already agreed with the developer mean that the developers have to make land available for construction of the paths? Or will the borough continue to turn a blind eye to planning deadlines?
Thank you, Chair. The developers are actively engaged, but there are practicalities to consider when formally opening the routes, including that some sections will need to be closed when the listed buildings are repaired and that construction works could damage any new surfacing and planting. Works to the Temple of Venus, Triumphal Arch and the Strategic Link Road in the vicinity of the Coach Road are to be completed in spring 2026, with the routes provided thereafter. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Question 7, this is the penultimate question, you'll be pleased to hear. The targets are set to meet actual house completions regardless of any forecasts. Wouldn't you agree that targets are there because without them, the developers would put a low priority on S106 and conditioned capital obligation, or even leave the site without completing them as intended?
Thank you, Chair. The original question may have been misinterpreted, but the trigger points in the Section 106 and conditions are based on the expected timescale by which the relevant obligation or requirement is needed. There are practicalities which can affect the timescales for the delivery of some matters, which need a pragmatic response and are considered on a case-by-case basis. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. This is the last question, and I may be able to have a comment on the summary. And it concerns the long delays in restoring the listed monuments on the site. Is the Borough Council aware that these so-called trigger points, which are actually not a starting gun, but a deadline for completion, and that in August 2015, that's 10 years ago, when this application went through this committee, Charnwood, the Historic England agency, wrote to Charnwood saying, "These are aspects that require immediate restoration and repair to ensure that their state does not worsen. The proposed phasing of restorations, which they've missed entirely, reflects the urgency and the need to repair key listed building and park features in the light of their condition." I think.
So, if I may, Chair. In short, yes, the Council are aware that those are, it's not a starting gun, but it is a completion by. Thank you, Chair.
If I may, the officer's kindly made a summary of what he said, and I would just like a word or two in response to that, if I may.
Yeah, you have 3 minutes supplementary time to ask
I don't
any
suppose I'll need
additional
that.
questions. I'm afraid there is no longer any time.
So I can't say that this is the most important planning development that the authorities ever had.
You're going to allow him to speak.
Okay, I mean, if it is important, yes, you can proceed.
Okay. Well, this is, we brought this to you because there are warnings and signs all over the place that things are not getting done on time, that they are not being completed, or they're completed in a different way. An example being the public access, which was laid down as public access, public right-of-way, are being ignored by this authority, and they're being ignored by the developer. Instead, they're putting in place permissive paths, which can be closed or opened at any time by the owner. But thank you very much for your patience with my questions, which I appreciate are there in full with all the background. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. I saw someone raise a hand. We may take members' inquiries that may have arisen as a result of this question.
Thank you, Chair. I was just pointing out that Ms Dobson had said that it was at your discretion.
Thank you. Do members have any inquiries or comments that they wish to make? Councillor Smidovics.
Could I just ask, would Historic England be approached? Could they be approached to speed this up on the heritage aspects?
Mr. Peckrell.
Through you, Chair. They are involved in discussions on any listed building consent, so our conservation officers will review any submissions for the works to repair those particular assets, and Historic England are consultees as part of that process for where they affect associated assets. So it is an option, I would have thought, but it's something we could take away and consider for the future.
Second question, please. The public access and the rights of way, don't they come under Leicester County Council, not Charnwood? So have they been approached?
Are they actually rights of way, or can you enlighten us as to what to expect?
Thank you. So yeah, there's different ways of determining the routes which are being made available through the registered park and garden at the moment are landowner agreed permissive routes. So there's details which support their provision. They're not formally adopted public rights of way as per a bridleway or a footpath. If they were, then they would become the responsibility of the county council. So, and that comes with its own caveats and standards and specifications as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
So if there's no other questions or comments, can we, Councillor Seaton, I think you just picked Councillor Enfield.
Thank you. I'd have gone Mardy if you hadn't. Probably, I think Mr. Hunt was saying that this development that it's been centred on is probably not on its own, and I don't know whether it's worth making note and sending it to and I've forgotten the word. Scrutiny, that's it. Scrutiny to see if this is an indicative problem with the larger developments that we have got, that deadlines aren't being met when they should be being met. And if we're letting things slide, probably just a suggestion that it goes to scrutiny in future. Because I know that I've got the large development. There's a large development at Thorpebury, and this one as well. Probably it's something that we need to watch, keep an eye on.
Thank you, Councillor Seaton. Would that be something one of the officers could answer? Is that a procedure that we can go ahead with?
Thank you, Chair. It's not something I can answer directly, and I assume it's within members' gift to refer to anything they wish to in the minutes. But I'd point to the summary, which is the initial summary published in the extras to Mr. Hunt's questions, which reiterates really, and I think it was pertinent in the presentation, talking about years and when these schemes were actually permitted. They are long-term and large schemes of significant size and complexity, and they will be subject to a range of variables. And I think that's reflective of Councillor Seaton talking about Thorpebury. We've got Garendon Park, and of course we've got latterly, but not least, Broadnock as well. So there are various constituent parts that have to be considered, and are interrelationships between bringing the development forward and, as we've heard this evening, things like restoring heritage assets, which were a very important part of the consideration when Garendon Park was taken through to an approval. So I can't answer your question directly, but hopefully members will understand that there are various complexities, as you can appreciate, with schemes of this scale. Thank you, Chair. Thank you,
Mr.
Chair. The role of scrutiny is to scrutinise the council internally, so the executive decisions and the policies and the procedures. It's not the role of scrutiny to scrutinise people outside of the organisation. And as Mr. Upton has said, it's a long-term development. There will be delays. There are mechanisms that the officers will have in terms of enforcement powers and requiring things to be done. And sometimes it's not expedient to force a developer to do something, because you don't then get what you actually want at the end of the day. And certainly from my understanding of what has been said with regard to the footpaths, the issue with the footpaths is that the county won't adopt them until they're of a standard. And if they're not of a standard, then the county is just not going to adopt them, and there will remain the responsibility of the developer. I'm happy to, outside of this meeting, have a look to see whether or not it would be feasible for it to go to scrutiny, but my initial gut reaction is that it is not a scrutiny function. Scrutiny is there to scrutinise the executive and make sure that the council is operating in an effective way.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Councillor Infield.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to come back to this question of the right of way that was discussed. So it sounded as though it was meant to be a proper public right of way, but it seems to have become a permissive path instead. And if that is the case, and if I've not misunderstood it, why was that change made?
Mr. Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I can only come at that from my own personal opinion based on my knowledge of the case, but I don't think it's explicit from the submission documents that it would be a publicly adopted right of way. So I think the provision as a permissive route is a achievable and sensible solution for what we've got at the moment, and bearing in mind that there's still a long way to go in terms of the construction of the wider site. And that's not to say that a formal adoption by the County Council would be off the cards in the future, but we remain engaged with the County Council on various highway matters and various things associated with the existing public rights of way on the site, so the formally adopted ones, the surfacing of those routes. And we continue to talk about the potential to adopt additional routes within the Register Park and Garden. But like I say, as I set out earlier, there's some details within the permissive routes, such as solar stud lighting and solar bollards, which go above and beyond what the County Council would provide as their standard. So there are some benefits to be gained by accepting permissive routes, versus what may be maintained by the county council in the future. So there are other variables at play, and we continue to keep it under review as well. Thank you, Chair.
And are there any other comments or questions from the members? Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Can we move now on to item 4, disclosures of pecuniary and personal interests? For information, disclosable pecuniary interests and registrable interests relate to entries that are included or should be included on a councillor's register of interests. Non-registrable interests relate to any other matters. Ms Dobson, have we received any disclosures of interest?
I confirm that I've received a disclosure of interest from Councillor O'Neill regarding item 5A, P24/0251/2, land off Hobie Road, Thrussington, who does not have an open mind on this application and will be speaking on behalf of Councillor Woodward. He will sit in the public gallery for this item and will not take part in the discussions. Councillor O'Neill has also disclosed that he has an interest in item 5C, P23/2237/2, land off Seaton Road, Mount Sorrel, as he was a parish councillor when this proposal was being considered by the parish. I don't know, however, do you have an open mind on that, Councillor O'Neill?
Yes, I do have an open mind on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other disclosures of interest members wish to make? Or Councillor Fox?
Hello, I'm just subbing today, so it's actually my first Plans Committee, so I just wanted to clarify something. I am the councillor for Mount Sorrel Castle, so I obviously work with the Mount Sorrel Parish Council, and item 5C relates to that. I'm very comfortable that I have an open mind, but I just wanted to say that in case.
So that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
And is recorded. So now we move on to item 5, which is the planning applications. Councillor O'Neill, would you mind moving to the public gallery? So this is item 5A on the agenda, number P/24/0251/2, land off Hobie Road, Thrussington. I would like to refer to our lead officer, Mr. Upton.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an update report following the deferral of this application at the meeting on the 19th of February. So the application is in outline and matters of access and layout only are to be considered at this stage. Clearly, for those members who were here on the 19th of February, you recall quite a long debate about this item. And I think it distilled down to the matters that are listed in the report, for which we had quite a comprehensive response from the applicant, as listed in the report. So around drainage, footpath links, the disposition of affordable housing, management of amenity space, and those are all set out within the published reports. I will go through the plans in a minute just to give a bit more detail on some of those issues. Since the Plans Committee, there was another issue raised, which is set out in the report, which was regarding barn owls, which was reported verbally previously, and that's also addressed within the report. So just looking at the plans, if we just flick through those, if that's okay. So the site there on the edge of the existing village in Thrussington. If we just go to the next slide. The next slide shows the drainage features on the site. There was some concern about how the drainage worked. Now there is a further detail required on this. It doesn't form part of this existing layout, but there are conditions set out within the original report, which are provided in the first appendix to the report this evening. So that appendix is the report from the 19th of February. So this additional layer of detail shows centrally, so you can see the two-tone blue feature in the middle, and I'm glad we've got a red dot moving around the screen. Thank you, Akram. So we've got the central feature, SUDS feature, which we talked about previously, which also provides a central space, open space within the development. And then to the northwest of that, you can see that there are storage facilities which would be underground, and you can see linked drainage runs coming out from that. And there was reference last time, and within the response from the applicant regarding some drainage features near the site access in the front of the site. So the red dot is just sort of highlighting those areas. And there again, additional underground storage facilities. Those are, in terms of the details of those facilities, those are covered by the originally proposed conditions in the first appendix this evening. So that's drainage. In terms of footpath links, we can see there, and hopefully we have got the red dot because it's not quite so easy to see the blue on the grey, which is the roads within the internal layout. But if we start with in the sort of south and western corner, you can see the blue dots. My red dot's not keeping up now. Come on, Akram. Sorry. So we have got around the buildings, we've got the southern and western proportion of the site. So coming out on, that's it, onto the site. That's it. So adjacent to the existing property on the edge of the village, there is a footpath link retained there. And there's also the link through the middle of the site down through the site access as well. So around the SUDS feature and around the roadway as well. So, and then on the southwestern corner of the slide, you'll see on the bottom, you'll see an arrow, and that indicates the footpath which is to be provided along the existing verge, which links into the existing footpath network in the village. So a fairly comprehensive a series of links there. Next, there's a slide just showing the proposed access. So just a bit closer detail. This was presented last time round. So you can see the main access and the footpath to be provided on the road frontage. Thank you, Akram. Is that the last one? Yeah, and then finally, we've got the affordable housing disposition. So again, just clarifying that it's not clustered. There are 7 units set out and stand around that that part of the site. And next slide, please, Akram. I think that was the last one. Yeah. So those are the main issues that were raised last time around. The applicant was keen to respond on those because they do wish to have layout considered as part of the application. And the recommendation with the updates through the extras is put forward this evening. In terms of the planning approach, the layout set out in a report this evening in terms of response under points 5 and 6. So the rationale for the planning layout is set out there, that it will be of a good quality in terms of the design. And also there's a response around car parking around the apartment block buildings. And that's recommended for you this evening, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Upton. We now have speakers on this item, and the first speaker is Mr. Adam Cavell on behalf of the agent. Mr. Cavell, you've got 3 minutes in which to speak, and when 1 minute is remaining, Miss Dobson will let you know.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to speak again at today's committee meeting. Following the committee meeting of the 19th of February, it was suggested that citing would be removed from the application and a small number of queries were raised in relation to the application, which hopefully I can clarify here today. We would like to reiterate the desire to keep citing within the application. The site plan has evolved over this 2-year application process following in-depth feedback and involvement from the planning officers, urban design, ecological officers, together with the relevant statutory consultees. The layout put before you today is a culmination of balancing many needs and wishes of the planning authority. The planning and urban design officers have described the scheme as potentially award-winning, and we hope this praise should be taken into consideration when deliberating on the design quality. Various technical queries were raised as part of the previous committee, which I believe can be summarised as the location of the attenuation pond, site connectivity, car parking to the apartment units, and management of the gardens to the apartment units. The village pond is purposefully designed and located to the centre of the site from both a flooding perspective and at the request of the urban design officer as a design preference. There is further underground drainage crate systems to the front of the site. The scheme that has been designed gives the site 2 points of flow control for surface water drainage. Firstly, the pond, and secondly, the underground drainage crate system. This 2-phase storage strategy reduces the flow of rainwater being discharged off-site and therefore reduces the load to the off-site drainage systems. This drainage strategy allows for the whole site and each individual house to be properly drained. These plans have been revised and fine-tuned over the past 2 years to the point which it is at today, and this is agreed with the flood authority and local authority as being an acceptable solution. The question of site connectivity was raised. We have provided further information of footpaths being proposed throughout the site, which we believe gives the most direct possible routes to Hobie Road and thereafter to Thrussington Village. The land surrounding the site is private, and therefore the only access to Thrussington is via Hobie Road. We have proposed the implementation of a new extended footpath along Hobie Road to Thrussington, which will not only provide residents of the application site with a route to the village, but will also service the houses along Hobie Road. I can confirm that the management of the gardens to the apartment units will be via a management company which is directly owned and controlled by the residents, giving them full power and full autonomy over all shared amenity and landscaping space within the scheme. We're a locally based company employing local tradesmen and very keen to make a swift start on this exciting project. Hopefully I've been able to clarify all of the queries raised following the initial hearing of this application last month, and I trust that you will now be able to support the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cavell. Our next speaker is Steve Watson of Thrussington Parish Council. Mr. Watson, are you familiar with the microphone operation? You've got 3 minutes in which to speak, and when you've got 1 minute left, Miss Dobson will let you know.
Right, hello all. I am Steve Watson, a parish councillor for Thrussington. This unsuitable site finds itself in the local plan, so we fear that this historic green field is doomed. However, if this application were to be rejected today, it would be much appreciated and in the village. I'd just like to describe one of the many areas of unsustainability which residents have included in their objections: the inevitable increase in vehicular traffic in the already congested village centre. To encourage the use of public transport, Leicester County Council has stipulated that 2 6-month bus passes will be required for each new property at £510 per pass. Only an extreme optimist would think that these will actually be widely used, given that the closest bus stops to the development are 1.3 miles away in Rearsby. Let's call this a 30-minute walk. And they serve a single bus route just travelling between Melton and Leicester. To travel to Loughborough today in time for this 5 o'clock meeting, I decided to travel by bus and left Thrussington just before 3 p.m. I walked to Rearsby to catch the bus towards Melton, changing in Asfordby to travel to Loughborough, and I just made it. That makes a 90+ minute journey, which would have taken about 25 minutes by car. Given the lack of services in Thrussington itself, I predict that nearly all travel from this new development will have to be by car, totally opposite to all the sustainability aims and claims throughout the local plan. Looking at the impact of all these extra cars, many residents have pointed out in their objections that very few houses in the historic centre of the village have a parking space, so on-street parking is necessary for many houses. Narrow roads mean that often a single lane only is available to drivers. One particularly awkward example is Ratcliffe Road, where there's a continuous line of parked cars for about 150 metres from the junction with Rearsby Road. As the road bends at this point, it's impossible to see oncoming traffic approaching, even if they're large farm vehicles. And as well as being potentially dangerous, one or other vehicle is often forced to reverse. As the A46 junction at the top of Seagrave Road gets busier and more dangerous, many drivers use Ratcliffe Road to access a safer A46 junction the other side of the village of Ratcliffe. It's not difficult to imagine gridlock, especially when the road to Rearsby is impassable due to flooding. To conclude briefly, I hope if this development is given the green light, it will mean that Thrussington will be subjected to an increase of 90 homes, including the 64 homes which were granted permission in December, or 39% of the current housing stock. In the right environment, I'm sure this development could be successful, but to me, it's just in the wrong place. Sorry, I'll say that again. To me, it's just in the wrong place.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Our final speaker on this item is Councillor Chris O'Neill, who is speaking on behalf of Councillor Sandra Woodward, who called the item in. Miss Councillor O'Neill, I'm assuming that you know how to work the microphone. You've got 3 minutes in
Thank you,
which
Chair.
You've got 3 minutes in which to speak, and Ms Dobson will let you know when you've got 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair and Plans Committee. I'm here to speak against the proposal to build these houses in Thrussington, application P/24/0251/2. This site was a surprising late addition to the local plan. To quote the local plan document itself, paragraph 3.229, small villages and hamlets have few or no services and facilities, and people who live in these settlements rely on larger ones for their day-to-day needs. They are therefore generally poor locations of a new development. So the point is, just because the site is in the local plan, it does not make it suitable for development. Addressing the issue of cars, if you want to go to a GP in Thrussington, the nearest GP is in Syston, and that is a car journey. There's a nice shop in Thrussington which sells nice coffee and cake, but if you want a weekly shop, you have to go to Syston, or some residents go to Melton, I believe. There's no public transport in the village, as the previous speaker mentioned. Residents have to walk to Rearsby or to Hobie for a bus. So at present, the village has few services and a car journey is needed to reach them at present. Building these further 26 houses will bring additional cars to the village and will not improve the current situation. It won't improve the current situation because more cars means more car journeys, and more car journeys means less sustainability. The National Planning Policy Framework document specifically mentions the fact that an increase in car usage is a negative factor in sustainability. So Thrussington, to my view, is clearly a non-sustainable site for development. Non-sustainability is a material planning consideration. You can refuse permission citing citing non-sustainability as a legitimate planning reason. I'll just repeat that. Thrussington is clearly a non-sustainable site for this development. Non-sustainability is a material planning consideration. You can refuse permission for these houses, giving non-sustainability as a legitimate planning concern. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor O'Neill. So can the committee now consider their own comments and questions regarding this item? Councillor Corey Losley.
Thank you very much, Chair. So obviously we've already discussed this application in quite some detail back in February. It's come back to us unchanged with the exception of some clarifications in the report. So my view on it really hasn't changed since then. And I'd be in favour of it to clarify. Obviously there are some issues that speakers have raised and that members raised last time that we've got outstanding. There was some confusion over the layout being submitted with the outline application. Whether it was submitted with the outline or if it was weighted to reserve matters, I don't know what difference that makes. The layout is the layout, and the developer and the planning office are quite happy with that and made it very clear that that is what they intend to put forward. In terms of flooding, the retaining pond is where it is, and the Environment Agency, the Flooding Authority, are happy with that. We've had further clarification on extra tanks that are going in. So in terms of assurances about flooding, we've got them. In regard to the local plan, the allocation of it, the decision of sustainability was made when that plan was put together. And whether that was right or not right is difficult for us to toss up here and now in this plans committee. That was for the councillors and for the administration. When they put that in the local plan, they obviously decided this is sustainable and we want to build here. So that decision, I'm afraid, has been made for us. In terms of bus passes, it is silly that there are bus passes in the S106 with no buses. It seems a bit Kafkaesque and ridiculous, that does. But the fact of the matter is there aren't any buses. And I understand it would absolutely be better if there was. It would certainly be more sustainable if there was. But there aren't. And to say, well, we shouldn't build this because it's not sustainable because there's no nearby buses, is to say, well, we can't ever build one, there's not a bus nearby, which I think is silly. And then in terms of owls, I'm quite happy that the mitigation set out in the report solved that problem. So, Chair, I'd like to propose that we accept officers' recommendations, including any amendments in the extras report.
Thank you, councillor Corey Losley. Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much to the speakers. We spent an hour and a half on this, I believe, in February, and I would just like to support Councillor Corey Losley. I second his recommendation and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, councillor Fryer. Councillor Infield.
Thank you, Chair. So I do agree that the site layout and the issues that we spent a lot of time discussing last time have been satisfactorily dealt with. No problem about that. However, I can't agree that the decision over sustainability has been made for us. It was included in the plan. That is true. And therefore, if we were to oppose this, we have to find serious material planning considerations to reject it. Now, I believe as a planning committee, we have the power to do that, but it's a tricky issue because sites will vary in their sustainability. Some sites are more sustainable than others. Now, we've heard this site doesn't have a bus service, doesn't have a GP, doesn't have a proper shop. So for me, that would lean towards not being sustainable, regardless of it being in the plan. And as far as I know, according to law, we are not obliged to pass any site simply because it's in the plan. If there are serious material planning considerations, and I believe these could be, then we can reject. Now, it's a balancing act. You know, how sustainable, how non-sustainable is this location? I tend to go with the speakers that we've heard that it isn't very sustainable. But I think if we were to decide to go against officers' recommendation, then we need, despite having had a long discussion about all the little nitty-gritty things last time, I think we need to have a serious discussion amongst ourselves as to what sustainability means and whether we are happy to put our hands on our hearts and say, yes, that's sustainable enough, I'm going to vote in favour of it. So I'd very much like to hear what other people have got to say on this. So I came to this meeting with predisposition, but with an open mind. So I'm very willing to listen to well-argued reasons on either side of this case, but I think we do need to do that in fairness to the local community. Thank you.
Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Chair. To be honest, I don't see that I have to justify a decision that I'm making when I'm I'm going with the forward plan, the local plan that has been made. I don't believe the argument for it being unsustainable would be, if we just argued that one point, would not be enough to refuse this application. I was very impressed in the responses we got from the developer, and they were quite prompt. And if we were of a mind then to have turned this application down, which was when we discussed it for such a long time, we would have done so. But we had some queries. Those queries have been dealt with and in some cases improved upon as well. I'm quite happy to support this application. As I say, I don't think the fact of saying that it's unsustainable is a large enough factor for refusal. Thank you.
Councillor Good.
I really appreciate the new diagrams. They were so much more easy to see. If they were here before, I think the discussion would have been a bit shorter last time. Being able to see that footpath a lot more clearer, which was my main concern at the time, to see that it actually does, you don't have to walk all the way through the estate, you can cut along that side, was so much clearer. I do actually quite like the Suds Pond in the middle as a village pond. I think it's quite a nice thing to have a village pond. Instead of just having a Suds Pond for the flooding, having it as actually a local village amenity of such is quite nice. But having that extra information about the flooding tanks underneath as well helps me think that that is actually a double-pronged attack to any flooding going forward. My other concern last time was the bus route, and because it does seem rather silly to give a bus pass without a bus, but at the same time, if there's never any houses, there'll never be a bus there anyway, so that actually might help the rest of the village moving forward, because there'd be more people needing a bus route. So I'm very happy. Thank you for bringing those extra diagrams. I think the response was, I think the deferral and then the response to it was quite helpful for us. Thank you.
Councillor Infield, did you need a response to your question about sustainability at this meeting?
I would have liked it, because my own inclination is that sustainability is very important. The local plan stresses that. National Planning Policy Framework stresses that. And I'm finding it difficult to find positive reasons to say this site is sustainable. As we heard, if sites depend on car for mobility, that's not sustainability. And although, of course, in the future, I do agree, there might come a bus route, we can't anticipate that in our decision. In our decision making, we have to look at the facts on the ground as they are. So I'm still not convinced that this site is sustainable.
I'm just going to go to our legal advisor, Mr. Gill.
Thank you, Chair. The position is, Councillor Enfield, that because the site is allocated in the local plan, it has been deemed that it is suitable for development and also that it's deliverable. So you've already got that in principle decision that says that it is capable of being developed and it's deliverable. If you wanted to go down the route of sustainability, as Councillor Seaton has said, you would be really struggling on that, because you've got a previous decision made under the local plan that it's capable of being delivered and now we're suddenly saying it's not capable of being delivered. I mean, as it stands at the moment, there's a motion on the table for approval, so that matter has to be dealt with first. But if that is lost, that motion, and you then want to come back with an alternative motion, you must give really strong planning grounds.
No, I fully understand that. So it's in the plan. So in almost all circumstances, there's an assumption that this is suitable for development. However, and I have discussed this with Head of Planning recently, if there are serious material planning considerations why this site should not be developed, then it is perfectly within the remit of the Plans Committee to vote against it, even though it is in the plan. The converse would be that any proposal that comes to us at any time in the future that is in the plan has to be automatically approved, and that is not the case, and it would also remove the need for a planning committee in almost all circumstances. So I think we have to be very careful. This is a subtle point. It's important. I do take your point, and of course I said it is in the plan, and so therefore there is a strong presumption in favour of development. However, if there are serious material considerations that oppose that, then we have it within our power to turn it down. So it's just a very difficult area. I accept that.
Thank you, Councillor Infield.
Did you want to
Yeah, I'm just going to refer now to our officer, Mr Upton.
Thank you, Chair. I'm struggling a bit with my screen and my microphone, so hopefully I can both see some words that I want to reiterate from the published report from February, as well as not stab myself with the microphone. So, yeah, obviously we've got an allocated site. We heard about the concerns about two things, one about sustainability and two about material considerations. Just start with material considerations. So the start, and as set out in legislation, the starting point is the development plan. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's an allocated site in the recently adopted local plan, and that carries very significant weight in terms of the planning position and the principle of development of this site for housing. The second question around sustainability, we could be here for a very long time, but I'll try and keep it short. There are clearly various elements to sustainability set out within the MPPF and elsewhere. And obviously we've got the three limbs of social, economic and environmental. The discussion this evening from or the presentations in the public speaking, very much focused around public transport. That is an element of one of those three limbs of sustainability. What would also have been considered as part of the allocation of the site are other things that this allocation would support. I know in terms of the relevant background documents from the local plan, in terms of looking at the development strategy, that things like the local school and providing support for the local school and capacity there would have been a consideration, not only for this site, but also the other site that we considered just before Christmas on Aldgate Road. To bore you with the detail, I have been along the road from Rearsby to the village in between times, and I know there are. I noted on a particular day there are at least 6 people who passed me who were walking. I know there's a break in the walking route around a bridge, but there is an elevated walking route for a large part of the connection between the village and Rearsby. I think when the point was raised on the previous allocation about buses and the request from the Highway Authority, I was very clear that it's not an ideal situation, but those provisions are an encouragement to seek more sustainable travel for new residents. That could be, I gave the example, parents dropping their family while they go off to work. Their children might want to use public transport from Rearsby to go to different places. That's one of probably lots of different examples you could use. But I would go back to the point that having the bus connection close by is common of a lot of places, and those provisions from the county or requests from the county are an encouragement to access those options as local as they are. But yes, other things in the village, people have mentioned the shop. And I don't know whether people are referring to the pub cum bistro, whatever label you put on it, but I know there are some facilities in the village. So again, the economic part of sustainability would come into play as well. So as I say, I probably have gone a bit too long, but that's the fascination when we use the phrase sustainable development, isn't it? But the principle has been settled through the local plan. We have got an allocated site, and clearly from the response we've had following the deferral, I think the principal issues that members were concerned about have been appropriately addressed by the applicant, and hopefully that provides enough context both on sustainable development and where we are this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to come back as I had reserved my right to speak. I think I spoke at some length at the last meeting. It hasn't changed my mind. I appreciate the clarification we received very promptly from the developer. I'm encouraged also, although it's not a planning condition or manner, I'm very encouraged that it is someone who's local that is doing this development. It's a small development, comparatively speaking. I know Thrusington is not a large village, and it may be lacking in some facilities at the moment, but it does have a school, which is in walking distance. It has, and we do encourage, as the officers explained, if I know the bus passes, we've raised this many, many times, why do they give them when we haven't got buses? But it is an encouragement to the buses and to people to start using them. So I don't change my mind, and I would recommend that we go forward now. And I have no further questions. Thank you.
Councillor Smithwick.
So question, the GP practice in Syston has already closed. So will the £25,168.40 that was going to that practice be returned to another practice?
Mr. Upton.
Sorry, just picking that up. Yeah, the reference is to the Jubilee practice and the county practice. So in terms of the total contribution, that's what's been requested, so that contribution would go forward and provide to the most local practice that is still accessible.
So if it's not Syston, where else can it be?
Sorry, Chair, I should have clarified. There are two practices at the moment, but if one is closed, the contribution would fall upon the other practice.
So the other one will get it all.
Yep.
Are there any more comments? Councillor Fox.
Hello, I'm conscious I wasn't there when it was discussed last time, but I thought I would just pick up on a few comments today, if helpful. Firstly, I just wanted to say thank you very much to the speakers. I found them really helpful. I thought they spoke very eloquently about the impact on the local area, so thank you. I also wanted to agree that while the local plan is clearly highly significant and important, I don't think we should ever throw our hands up and say the decision's been made for us. And it's always up to us to use our own opinion and perspective. And I think we owe that to the residents. So I agree with that. I did put this point, I don't think it's relevant now, but I do have experience of receiving assurances on flooding and unfortunately practice playing out very differently recently. So I do also understand local concerns. I know that hasn't been picked up with as much clout. So what I wanted to say is I'm actually really sympathetic with residents, and I think they sort of painted that picture. Where I struggle is I have faced I worked at a local level on applications with similar concerns. And the issue I think here is if we decide to oppose such an application, I don't think the logic follows. So if you go, we can't develop there for that reason. For example, there's not the infrastructure. For example, there's not the current, sorry, I haven't put a better word, infrastructure to deal with it. Therefore, we can never develop. The problem I have is that if there is an issue, the answer is not to not build, it's to find a solution to the issue. So I really was quite balanced, and I felt I could empathise with a lot. But I feel that a little bit like, sorry, I can't see your name, the councillor here, when you said that there isn't a bus stop. Sorry, Councillor Good, if there isn't a bus stop now, but if you build, when you build, it will come. I feel like we can't say because there's a wider issue in a local area, we can therefore never build. The answer is to find a way to build. And that kind of comes back, Councillor Infield, to your point, is whether we can build sustainably. So I think your point was valid, that we have to decide whether the issue has been adequately addressed. But I don't think we can ever decide not to build because there is a wider issue that is beyond, to some extent, the remit of just one council. So I was quite balanced. I am cognisant that I wasn't there in the last time it was considered, so I don't have that kind of legacy discussion or legacy sentiment about it. But I just wanted to kind of pick up on a few comments that people have made.
Thank you. Are there any more comments or questions? Then we can move to vote, which is to support the officer's recommendation, proposed by Councillor Corey Loseley and seconded by Councillor Fryer. All those in favour? Seven, is it?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh. You're not voting.
It's not on this occasion. No.
7.
All those against?
3. Abstentions?
Thank you.
So that's 7 for the motion, 3 against, 1 abstention, so the motion is passed.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. For the members of the public in the public gallery who only came for this item that we've just finished, can you, if you want to leave, you may do so. So now, committee, we're going to item 5B. Councillor O'Neill, are you coming back to see us? And it's number P/25/1045/2, land at the Ridings and West Cross Lane, Rothley. I would like to refer to our lead officer, Mr. Upton.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an application for full permission for a new cricket facility as set out on the slide there. We'll see the component parts as we go through the presentation. It's been referred to Plans Committee following a call in by Councillor Charles, who unfortunately can't be with us this evening, but I think he has got some words that he's passed forward for the Chair. In terms of the application, it's for the Rothley Park Cricket Club, and it's located, if we can just see the slides, the bulk of the area is as shown on that slide, just to show the context. So in the southern part of the slide, you can see the northern edge of Rothley, and to the northeast, you can see Mount Sorrel, and the arc of development where the red dot is at the moment is the newer development completed by Persimmon in recent years. So that's the site context. In terms of the fuller application site and the proposal, you'll see there is a spout or a finger of land within the red line that goes off to the northeast. That effectively encloses a proposal for a footpath on the edge of the highway to provide a link up to Mount Sorrel. In terms of the proposal itself, if we just go forward, there are some other constraints on the site. So you'll see, I believe it's a sewer easement, the blue line through the middle of the site. So that's a 6-metre easement either side of the sewer. There's also an existing drainage channel and ditch. It has got a hedge related to it as well. That's the yellow line where the red dot is at the moment, and it goes off to the southwest corner. There are also along the southwestern edge some TPO trees along the boundary. And in terms of other constraints, I think it's generally talking about views off into the wider area and towards Rothley. The next slide, please. So some site photographs. This photograph is taken more or less from Westcott Cross Lane. If I just go back a couple of slides to the one with the overlay on the aerial, that's it. That one, yeah, thank you. So in terms of the access proposed, that is, if you just go further down, that's it. So the lane off to the northwest of the slide, which goes up to the word site in the title of the slide, that is Gypsy Lane, and the access is just to the southwest of that, more or less where the red dot is now. You'll see within that area sort of an arced arrangement. That arced arrangement is the proposed parking area, for which there are various pervious surfaces and drainage facilities underneath. As we go round in the arc, we start to get the building. So first of all, on the frontage, you have the clubhouse, which will front a new cricket pitch. And behind that is a tractor store. And then further to the southeast is a separate building, which we'll see in elevation and some images, again, is a training facility. So it is quite a comprehensive proposal on behalf of the club. I'm sure we'll hear in public speaking about the success of the club and the need for the development. The club will retain its existing facility, which is located much further to the southeast. But the growth of the club has meant that there is a need for this additional facility. If you just go forward back to a couple of slides, thank you. Just forward one slide. So that shows the layout in a bit more detail with the two larger buildings, the clubhouse and the training facility with the tractor store behind. You see the cricket pitch is laid out in a sort of north-south orientation, and the parking areas which I mentioned further to the north, which are in the sort of brown shaded area. Next slide, please. These are just some floor plans from the different buildings. So this is the northern part of the range of buildings. So you've got the tractor store to the rear and the ground floor of the clubhouse off to the right-hand side of that slide. So there's sort of bar area and different storerooms behind that in the green hatching, obviously facing the pitch in terms of the front of the building. And then the first floor, just go to the next slide. So the first floor again shows different changing facilities, toilets, umpires changing room, etc. If we go to the next slide, which is the training facility, so more or less where the red dot is, that is the heart of the training facility. And if anybody hasn't been inside a cricket training facility before, which I did many years ago, they're effectively just in faint grey lines. There are 3 lanes there, so 2 or 3 nets could be laid out within that facility. And then further to the north, ancillary accommodation. We just go to the next slide, please. And then upstairs, there are some stairs up to a gym facility on that first floor. Thank you. So in terms of the proposed buildings, the main clubhouse is there, shown to be clad in quite a rustic sort of rural feel to it in terms of timber cladding and stonework to certain elements. You've got the roof, which will be a green roof and appropriate for its context. Next slide, please. And the training centre, similarly, timber with some stonework as well. With the right-hand side there, you can just see you'd have gym and other facilities there. Thank you. In terms of the footpath link I mentioned at the start, there would be a link shown. So we've got the red line, which we saw earlier, but the more detailed plan is one that's been pieced together on the rest of the slide. So the dark grey line shows a path. It will generally be 2 metres wide, but there is a significant tree along part of you can just about see it actually. I think if you, Akram, if you just go to the top slide, if you wouldn't mind, just the area, you can see the crown canopy of that tree, which is quite significant, and the path at that point does narrow to approximately 1.5, but those widths are still appropriate and meet relevant design guidance. Next slide, please. Again, just showing the drainage detail. There has been a lot of focus on this issue, not just in terms of some of the representations that have been received as well as the support, but also focus from the local lead flood authority. They're aware of both local incidents, and it is listed in the report, of flooding to that area to the north that we saw earlier, which I referred to as the more recent Persimmon development. So there have been local flood incidents there, and there has been a big focus on providing appropriate drainage for the site, as well as any betterment that is provided by the scheme. If we remember back to the constraints plan where we had a yellow drainage feature across the existing site, if you look to the left-hand side of this slide where you've got the lighter blue channel around the eastern and northern boundaries, that is where obviously you can't have the drainage ditch or channel across the middle of the proposed cricket pitch. So there will be a diversion of the channel, and it listed in the report is about an additional 110 metres of drainage channel which will go around the outside of the field. There are also various drainage commitments that will be secured by condition in terms of surveying the existing roadside drainage on West Cross Lane, which is on the northern edge of the site, and any remediation work that's required in that area, and that would need to be secured before development commenced. Thank you, Akram. And so the key considerations, they're all set out within the report. So the principle of development is a balance. We've talked about the relevant policy, environmental policy, and we believe the development does meet that policy. In terms of design, visual, amenity and character, as you'll have seen from the images, the design is a modern design which we feel is appropriate to its setting. In terms of residential amenity, the environmental health officer, as set out in the report, has given us an update, which I'll go through in a moment. There's also, as set out in the report, and as you'd expect with a cricket club and any residential properties in the vicinity, what's called a ball strike report. And that does reach conclusion in the report in terms of requiring a temporary facility for one of the nearby properties in terms of a temporary fence. If that was to be a permanent feature, it would be, I think it was 7 to 11 metres high. And we didn't feel that was appropriate in terms of having a permanent fixture of that height in quite an open location. I've seen them at various locations before, and I think it's an appropriate solution. The applicant has spoken with the local resident and agree that that's an appropriate way forward, but it is conditioned as part of the report this evening, that temporary feature to avoid those incidents of ball strike. But in terms of the noise environment, that was a particular focus, and there is an update within the extras report. It's listed on page 13 of the extras report. Sorry, I've only got part of it, but it's 13. So the environmental health team have looked at it, and the applicant has provided some feedback on the environmental health team's concerns. And there are two conditions proposed set out on pages 13 and 14 of the extras. So the development shouldn't be used for any non-cricket related private hire parties or weddings that incorporate live or amplified music. So that is a clear concern that if we have functions that aren't clearly related to the club, they shouldn't have those facilities. And then the requirement for a noise management plan to be submitted for prior approval, and for the development and the use of development to be carried out in accordance with any approved noise management plan. The other provisions, while we're on the extras report, there are requests from the county regarding contributions, but we feel the condition that requires a travel plan is sufficient, and that's condition 11 within the recommendation this evening. And there are some changes, so recommended change to condition 7 as set out on page 13 of the extras report. And then the third issue is that the other conditions in the report, the applicant has suggested changes to conditions 3 and 8, and it's considered that the change suggested to condition 3, which is regarding materials, can be acceded to, and the proposed updated condition is set out on page 14, Chair. So in terms of the proposal overall, residential amenity has been considered. In terms of transport and highways, again, there are conditions requested by highways which have been incorporated into the recommendation this evening, and there is suitable facilities provided for parking for a facility of this nature. In terms of flooding and drainage, again, I've covered that as I went through the slides, so I don't intend to go through that in any more detail now, but all I will reiterate is that that issue has been looked at very carefully, and we have no objections from technical consultees, and the application with the updates in extras is recommended for approval this evening, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Upton. We now have, well, only one speaker. I'm going to be speaking on behalf of Councillor Charles, as we agreed at the beginning of the meeting. But our first speaker is Mr. James Hicks for the agent. Mr. Hicks. Are you familiar with the microphone operation? Lovely. You've got 3 minutes in which to speak, and when you've got 1 minute remaining, Ms. Dobson will let you know.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you've heard, my name is James Hicks. I'm a Chartered Town Planner, Director of Pegasus Group, and thank you again for the opportunity to address the committee this evening. I have quite sincerely had the greatest privilege of supporting Roteley Park Cricket Club from the outset, assisting them in both locating this, as we always considered, a suitable site to meet their growing sporting needs, developing a planning application, liaising with partners, and also with the nearby residents. The scheme before you this evening is a culmination of circa 3 years' work on behalf of the club and the wider technical team. And for a voluntary community organisation, their efforts have been unwavering in getting to this point. The proposal will deliver a very high quality ECB standard cricket facility capable of supporting all levels of the game and providing lasting benefits for both the club and the wider community. The design, I hope you agree, is exemplar in all respects. The scheme has been shaped through meaningful consultation. As I've said, this has included engagement with the nearby local residents, neighbouring properties, discussions with the council through pre-application advice, both also Mount Sorrel Parish Council, and also local schools, including Glebelands Primary School and Rothley Church of England Primary School. These stakeholders have expressed clear support, recognising the need to meet growing demands for sport provision, particularly for young people in the locality. In addition to the on-site benefits, the proposal will deliver off-site improvements through the footpath extension to West Cross Lane, not only being a highway authority requirement through the pre-application response, but more so common sense for a community facility meeting the needs for a nearby community. Flooding has been very carefully considered, as you've heard. The applicant has worked closely with the lead local flood authority to develop a solution that diverts and extends the existing watercourse to increase its capacity, slows runoff and reduces pressure on the wider drainage network. The authority is satisfied that the scheme will not exacerbate flooding and will improve existing conditions for nearby residents. Concerns regarding noise, as you've heard, have been addressed with no unacceptable impacts identified and appropriate controls secured through a noise management plan. As set out in the committee report, the proposal represents a significant enhancement to the community facility and the offer locally for sport, delivering modern, high-quality provision with a substantial public benefit. I'm delighted to read this evening that the officers consider the proposal accords with the development plan as a whole, with no significant harms identified, and recommends approval. I therefore respectfully endorse that recommendation and thank everyone for their time.
Thank you, Mr Hicks. And on behalf of Councillor Charles, who called in this item, I'm going to read his note out to you. Do I have the 3 minutes? When I've got 1 minute left, Ms Dobson will let me know. Right. Dear members of the Planning Committee, please accept my apologies for not attending tonight's meeting in person, as I have an essential medical appointment with my wife. It is very unusual for a councillor to be able to address Plans Committee in support of an application, but for once this is the case. The application is on behalf of Rothley Park Cricket Club, a championship winning local club with men's and women's senior teams and a thriving junior section supporting under 6s to under 19 boys and girls. This club provides a strong focal point for Rothley, as well as supporting social and community benefits. The main concerns raised locally to the application were with flooding and traffic. Members will note from their reports that the applicants have worked proactively with the officers and residents to alleviate these issues, and that the Highways Department and the lead flood authority now raise no objections to the development. I hope that members will also note the large amount of written support received for this application and will see this as an opportunity to support the development of a fantastic local community asset by supporting officers' recommendation. That's me done being Mr Charles. I turn it to yourselves, members of the Planning Committee. Councillor Nicola Hadjar.
I want to offer my apology. I thought that it was Mount Sorrel. This is Rothley, and I'm the borough councillor for Rothley, so I haven't declared conflict of interest, and I don't know whether I can participate in this vote. I have an open mind, though.
Can you just hold on 1 moment while I consult with our officer who, I don't know if they've got the same constitution as all other councils. Is a ward councillor?
It's fine.
You're okay if you want to speak, as long as you've got an open mind.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have anything to say, to be honest.
Oh. So yeah, if there's anything like that in future, if you could let us know at the beginning of the meeting for declarations, thank you. Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, and thank you to the Speaker. I've read through the report. As someone's already mentioned, it's very unusual to have so many supporters that have written in about an application with this. As far as I can see, I think this is an excellent facility. I like the design. I think they've worked very closely with all the department and necessary bodies, including flood and everything. So therefore, I would recommend that we accept officer's recommendation as laid out in the report and as the ones that are laid out in the extras report. I think there are 2 or 3 there, so it's the whole document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fryer. Councillor Smidovics.
I'm happy to support this recommendation, but I also have a question. On page 67, it talks about the biodiversity being met by on-site mitigation. Is that simply the roof, the green roof on the sports pitch, sports facilities?
Thank you, Chair, through you. No, there's additional features as well on the site as set out. The copy I'm looking at of the report isn't paginated, which is a great inquiry trick if you ever try it when you're doing closing submissions. But the report at 9.6.6, so I'm going by paragraph numbers, Councillor Smith. The ecological assessment found no protected species on the site and habitat of limited value. And then it talked about retention of trees and hedgerows and new planting, and that was considered adequate compensation in terms of the biodiversity on the site. So there are no outstanding ecological issues, and the ecologist was satisfied subject to the conditions that we've proposed this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Good.
I noticed a report this week when mentioned something about muggers where, you know, the MUGA was actually helping a lot more boys than girls. So in this report, when it said it was particularly helping girls there and the expansion, I was quite interested in that. Also, I quite like the design, and I'm happy to second the proposal moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. I've never understood the game of cricket myself. I've never understood the rules. I've never understood the appeal. But on the other hand, more positively, I think this is a very well worked out proposal, and I will be voting for it. Thank you.
Councillor Fox.
Hello, I just wanted to offer my support as well. I think this looks like a really exciting project that could bring a lot of benefit to the village, so I am in support of it as well.
Any more comments or questions? I'm afraid I've got one. I didn't take a lot of notice when we were outside on the site visit today, but the footpath, I don't think, with the hedge and the ditch where all the water goes, is there space for a 2-metre footpath, and can we have that conditioned?
Hello, Chair. I won't spin to the bottom of the report and tell you precisely which condition number it is, but the between pagination and paragraphs. Here we go. Let me just spin to the bottom before I stab someone.
Can I butt in and say it's the last mention of the footpath is at 9.5.3. Saying the application includes a footpath.
Yeah, it is covered in the conditions. I think it's the off-site works. So condition 7. So no part of the development should be occupied until such time as the off-site work shown on drawings. I won't bore you with the detail of the description of the reference numbers. Has been implemented in full, and that's to mitigate the impact of the development in the interest of highway safety and in accordance with the NPPF. Hopefully that
So
helps.
condition 7 is actually about the path then.
As I understand it, Chair, yeah.
So is that yes or no?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. So is anyone ready to propose or second or vote? Oh,
So,
Councillor
Councillor Fryer,
Fryer.
yeah.
Oh, right, I didn't realise you'd actually said the words. Right, so it's proposed by Councillor Fryer and seconded by Councillor Smidowicz to go with officer's recommendation for recommending the application proceed. So all those in favour?
It's unanimous, Chair.
That's unanimous, lovely. Thank you all very much. Anyone who isn't here, well, Councillor Charles obviously has been, but as the gentleman, if you wish, you may leave now. We'll go on to item 5C of the agenda, which is planning number P/23/2237/2, land off Seaton Road, Mount Sorrel. And I would like to refer to our planning officer, Mr. Akram.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, all. So, item 5C is outline application for a cricket pitch, a senior football pitch. You've got public open space, allotments with associated storage, building with scoreboard, mixed sports pavilion with community use facility, and car parking. The only matter as part of this outline, what you need to consider is access. All other matters are reserved. Before I move on to the remainder of the presentation, members should refer to the extras report, which provides updates in relation to minor typographical errors and amendment to condition 2. Okay. This is a site location plan with an aerial overlay with the site outlined in red. In terms of site context, you've got the application site in red. The actual white, which is number 1, is what previously had permission and it's still got permission for a cricket pitch and POS. Number 2 is additional land, which was formerly used as a small agricultural holding, and it forms part of the application site. And then you've got it's number 3, just outside the application site. That's the Halstead playing fields. And number 4 is the residential. These are the 2 phases, what have been approved and now being implemented as part of the residential scheme. And going towards the west, the dotted blue line is the Great Central Railway Line, which is a non-designated heritage asset. And you've got the Mount Sorrel Quarry, which is known as Broad Hill. This is the restored quarry, which got a permissive footpath running in a north to south direction that joins onto the bridleway. And you've got the number 6, which is the existing quarry, Mount Sorrel, which is situated there. And number 7 is a conservation area. And the conservation area, the highlighted orange, includes the bridleway, Coughlin Pits Lane, as well as Bond Lane, that wraps around the northern part of the site. And the few listed buildings, such as the church, towards the east of the site. This is a local plan policies map. You've got the site outlined in red. And as you can see, it's the light highlighted green area. It represents open countryside. And the dark one further down, that's the Halstead playing fields. That's the public open space designation. This is some of the photographs from the actual bond itself when you stand. So you've got the first one, which shows the cricket pitch. The second is what the existing public open space is. And the third is additional land, third and fourth, the bottom two, what would be incorporated as part of the application site. And this is viewed from Walters Close, a bit further down, which shows the cricket pitch and the bond, and also in terms of the access arrangement and where the pedestrian footpath, which I would discuss later on. This site context in terms of what permission has previously been granted and what the surrounding uses are. So you've got this in 2013 and 15, what was the phase one, and that had the cricket pitch as part of that planning permission. And then likewise, what I've discussed about the small agricultural holdings. And the third is what is the Halstead playing fields to the south, which is outside the application site. This was what was approved as part of the 2015 permission, the cricket pitch and the bond. And then to the east of that, that is the open space area, and you've got the children's play area there. Before I move on to the actual current layout, this was what the original layout was submitted. That included a number of football pitches which have been removed. And part of the reason for the removal of that is the discussion with football clubs and also residents and others, which now what you've got is you've got a cricket pitch and one senior football pitch, what's being proposed as the current proposal. In terms of, I know it's illustrated master plan, I thought if I could just discuss. So you've got the nature walk to the south, the southwestern corner. You've got the main cricket ground, and then beyond the boundary, you've got quite extensive buffer to the highway and residential properties. The landscape bond would be planted, and then you've got like an open spectator area there. That is where the pavilion and the community, sports pavilion and community building would be. And then you've got the cricket board and scoreboard building. You've got the woodland and then the allotments straight across in this location. And this is where the extensive car park would be across the site. And that is allocated for more parks and amenity, like informal kind of open space, public open space area. This is access arrangements. So as far as access arrangements, you've got Seaton Road, when it wraps around, and then you've got Walter Close. That's where the actual highway access, access for vehicles will be, which is a 5.5 meter wide, and you would have the pedestrian access. So it's separated across that there. That leads on to the rest of the site. This gives you an idea of some of the pedestrian links from not just about residential phases where you've got pedestrian and cycle links linking onto the actual proposed development site, but also through the existing Halstead playing fields. There's a pedestrian and cycle footpath link, and to the actual bridleway and public right-of-way, what runs across the north and eastern part of the site. This is typical pavilion and scoreboard buildings in terms of what they've actually, these are just indicative because the finer detail will come out as part of the reserve matters, but what they're looking at is more traditional at this stage, but they're just indicative. As far as key considerations, they're all set out within the report. I'll go through some of the few of them. In terms of the principle of development, the site lies adjacent to Mount Sorrel, which is defined as a service centre under policy DS1 of the local plan, making it an appropriate location for sustainable development that meets local needs. The proposal would deliver high quality open space, recreational areas, community facilities, sports pavilion within a safe walkable distance from nearby residents, supporting local health and well-being. This aligns with policies such as Countryside 1 C1, then you got the Community 1 T2, and you got the open space policies, EV9 of the local plan. There is a minor conflict within the countryside policy because the identified need does not come from a neighbourhood or a community-led plan. However, the need for an improved additional facility is identified in the council's open space strategy, playing pitch strategy, and the proposal is also supported by, like what I said, by T2 and EV9. And part of the site already has permission for a cricket pitch, open space, and playing facilities, which is a material consideration in favour of the development. All transport-related matters, to include access arrangements, are considered acceptable, subject to condition. Any net loss of biodiversity compensation would be secured through Section 106 agreement. All remaining matters are either result in no material harm or can be addressed through planning conditions. The recommendation put forward for members is to approve, subject to conditions, Section 106, as set out within the committee report and an extras report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Akram. We now go to the speaker on this item, which is Ward Councillor, Councillor Blackshaw. Councillor Blackshaw, are you familiar with the microphone? You've got 3 minutes in which to speak, and then when 1 minute is remaining, Ms Dobson will let you know.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee on behalf of Mount Sorrel Parish Council regarding the Coughlands Park project. I would like to thank the case officer, Mr Akram, for a clear and thorough report and for the positive recommendation before you today. The report is clear. This outline application complies with national and local planning policy, including the new Charnwood local plan. There are no technical constraints to progressing detailed design subject to your approval tonight. This is a policy compliant, and deliverable scheme. This proposal turns a long recognised need, which, as you have seen, has been supported by earlier Borough Council planning decisions since 2011, turning it into a practical delivery. Mount Sorrel has seen significant housing growth, with its population doubling over the last 50 years, particularly to the west side of the village. That expansion has not been matched by accessible green playing space, playing provision, or everyday community facilities. The need for new green infrastructure has been consistently identified in Borough Council open space and playing pitch strategies for the last 20 years. As a result, local clubs are under real pressure. Mount Sorrel Castle Cricket Club, which is the oldest cricket club in the county, needs to relocate due to constraints on its current site from nearby housing. Football teams are regularly forced to play outside our village. This scheme directly addresses those gaps. Coughlands Park will deliver high-quality, multifunctional green infrastructure, formal sports provision, informal recreation, allotments, biodiversity enhancements, and accessible open space. In doing so, it advances both Parish Council and Borough Council priorities: health and well-being, active lifestyles, community cohesion, and environmental value. It also ensures that developer contributions and recent public funding, including UK SPF support, are translated into tangible outcomes. This is about delivery, not aspiration. Outline consent tonight will enable the Parish Council to progress a detailed design, submit reserve matters, discharge conditions, and secure external funding. A new pavilion will also support inclusive community use in an accessible location. In short, this is a well-evidenced, policy-aligned proposal delivering across multiple council priorities. On behalf of the Parish Council, I strongly support the officer's recommendation and respectfully ask the committee to do the same so that this very long-awaited project can move forward. Thank you, Chair. Sorry about the echo.
Yeah, don't do it again. Right, now, committee members, have we got any questions or comments you wish to make? Councillor Infield.
I visited the site this afternoon. I think it's an excellent site. I think, although it's only outline, I think the indicative suggestion of how the site will be used is excellent, and I'm sure the Parish Council, as we've heard, will be working to fill in all that detail and get this moving. I understand that this project has been talked about for an awful long time, so I'm very pleased on behalf of the local community that this can at last move forward. So I'm totally in support of this and propose that we accept officer's recommendation.
Councillor Curry-Loseley.
Just to say, completely agree with Councillor Infield. Seconded two really great cricket-related applications we've had, and I second this proposal.
Councillor Hatchie-Nicolau.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a very good proposal. I just have two questions. Where is the entry side? From which road? It's from Bond Lane. Where is it? From where?
So it's access from Seaton Road, and that's the junction with Walters Close as well. So you got vehicle access and you got pedestrian access there. The two. So if you want it more detailed, where is it? There you go. That is a vehicle access opposite the housing, and that's the pedestrian access.
So it is actually through the new estates? Yeah. Oh, now I understand, thank you. And the second question, just out of curiosity. I know the land, and there is actually a set of pylons with high electricity cables. Is this marked there, or it is beyond the cricket club?
Yeah, in terms of the electricity pylons and the cables, I think they're situated further down towards the western part of the site. They're not. So this landscape bond is already there. The cricket pitch is there. There is no pylons or anything. I mean, what I recall from site itself is that you've got the quarry, Mansorrow Quarry, just around there. So the pylons itself are a bit further away from there.
Is that okay?
Thank you very much.
Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment that I think it ought to be named after the road. I think Seaton Cricket Ground has got quite a nice ring to it.
Thank you for that comment, Councillor Seaton. Councillor Fox.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much, Councillor Blackshaw, for your contribution. I thought it was very well put. So just to summarise, I think this is a very long overdue, very well considered application. It's an excellent opportunity for the village, and I am definitely in support of it.
Councillor Smidovic.
Sorry, I do have a question. Thinking about the residents, it does, on our page 111, I can't see what the officers have got, but it does talk about the parking problems and, well, there were quite a bit on the parking problems. So, for example, exacerbate parking problems as there is room for one car on the drive forecourt for some properties. So I couldn't quite make out where the parking was on there, and has that been taken into account?
So just to make you aware, when the parking issues were raised, that was on the previous layout, the number of pitches, but these pitches have been reduced now in size. But as far as parking, you've got a transport addendum what talked about there's about 60 spaces plus 6 disabled spaces. You've got cycle storage. A majority of the properties what I saw around on the opposite side do have two odd spaces, but there is terrace properties, some of them that do have one, but as far as parking, whether it's for the allotments, you've got a divided section area here for the allotment parking, and the remainder is for the actual two pitches, cricket and football pitch.
Any more comments or questions? Okay, so we have a proposal from Councillor Infield and seconded by Councillor Cora Losley that we go with officer's recommendation. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you all very much. Sadly, there's no list of applications determined under delegated powers, so I'm afraid I'll have to close the meeting. Thank you all.